Let me introduce the speaker. Fonz is the lead product designer at Netflix. He has worked with some of the world's biggest companies, entrepreneurs, as well as hip-hop producers. And as a fierce advocate for self-taught designing, Fonz is also a mentor for designer students in many organizations, such as California College of Arts. So without further ado, let's welcome Fonz Morris. Over to you, Fonz.
Okay, I was muted for a second, but I'm unmuted now. Good morning, everybody. It's actually evening where I am. I am in San Jose, California, and it's actually still Tuesday night here. So let me share my screen. Let me see. Let's get this started. Cool. So really excited to be here today. Thank you, Dev Day, for the invitation. I love talking about design. I love meeting new people. And let's get this show on the road. So today I want to talk about product design and growth design, as well as what it's like to be a growth designer. So like they said, my name is Fonz Morris, and I am one of the lead product designers for global conversion at Netflix. So about me, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, but I currently live in San Jose, California. I am a self-taught designer, meaning I did not go to art college or anything like that. I have founded 2 startups. One was an e-commerce business and one was a streaming company. I've been in design for over 17 years. And one fun fact is every Netflix member is in some kind of A/B test. Now, don't worry, we're not tracking you or invading your privacy. It's just we really care about our members' experience, and the only way to really know if we're doing a good job is to test our ideas. I'm going to go into that more in the conversation, but another disclaimer is if you don't want to be in the test that I just spoke to you about, you could actually go into your account settings and decide to not be in the test. But I wouldn't do that because you may miss out on being able to see some cool features. So question time. I can't see your responses, but I'm just going to ask you. Be honest, raise your hand if you know the difference, or if you know what growth design is or what a growth designer does. To some people, the term growth design or the term growth designer is a very new term. Depending on how long you've been in the industry, I think this title has kind of manifested over time, where when I first started in design, I was a growth designer but didn't even know it because I was just focused on growing my companies. I was just really obsessed with getting more subscribers, getting more users, getting more people on the platform. So that was my first taste of growth design, but I didn't even call it that at that moment. I just considered myself to be an entrepreneur. But let me give a little bit of a backstory on growth design. So a great definition that I found is that growth design is a process at the intersection of growth and design. So it's like if you had growth and design overlap, that little space in between these two is growth design. And what that means is, yes, we're focused on design, of course, we're focused on UX, we're focused on UI, we're focused on product design, but we're also focused on metrics and conversion and revenue and all of the different things metric wise that come with design, not just the visual side of it. And it feels as if we kind of play in the design and in the business space. And that's the part that I really like about it is I've always had a business mind. And like I said, I have an entrepreneurship background. So growth design really allows me to check both of the boxes of things that I'm interested in. So to go a little deeper into what a growth designer does, it's almost as if we're a combination of a designer, a founder, a product manager, and a growth lead. And why do I say that? It's because we're solving the problems and we're playing in all of these different spaces where, as a founder, we're coming up with just new ideas, innovation wise, to try to keep everybody interested in Netflix. As a product manager, I'm working with my cross-functional partners to try to actually get things done. My engineers, my data scientists, my content designers, front end, back end engineers. As a growth lead, I'm trying to make sure that the projects that we are working on will actually have some kind of result to the company that can be, that's an actual tangible result. And then as a designer, trying to figure out the user experience so that the customer, our member, the user is having a great time and wants to continue to use our platform and stays a paying customer. So you're constantly bouncing between all these different spaces, as well as when you think of business strategy, and then when you think of analyzing the data, it's such a well-rounded industry to be in. So product design versus growth design, I really feel they're one and the same. And I think it would be really hard for you to be a growth designer if you didn't understand product design. But as I tried to explain earlier, as a growth designer, you are worried about all of the things a product designer is, and you're very, very focused on metrics. So when you're making these decisions, it's not just to provide the best UX or to only have user empathy. It's also, are these solutions that I'm coming up with actually going to result in either converting members or increasing revenue or any of the metrics that your specific company is focused in? And like I said, I feel I grew to become a growth designer. I didn't really start as one. I actually started more in the graphic design and web design space, where my first company was actually a design agency doing websites, doing logos, doing business cards. And then from that, I grew to getting some investment. And when I got the investment is when I built my first product. And that's when I realized all of the different steps of product design and just how different it was from being a graphic designer or being a web designer. And after being a product designer for so long, I now can see the difference between product design and growth design. And like, I want to say hello to all my product designers on the call. I got nothing but love for everybody. And the growth design it's becoming more and more popular. You're going to hear this term a lot more because when you think of all of these startups and these apps, all they're trying to do is grow. So who are they looking to help them grow? A growth designer. So like I said, the skills a growth designer needs, you should be able to UX, UI, marketing, understanding of front end, understanding of back end development to a certain degree, tons of user research. I do so much user research, prototyping, visual design. It's almost as if a growth designer is a jack of all trades and can honestly be effective and bring value to every phase of a product life cycle. That's why it's a skilled profession to be in, and it takes some time to get there because it's going to be really hard for you to understand all of these different pieces as soon as you get started. But as you grow and you work on bigger projects and you go to bigger companies and your interest grows, you'll start to want to learn all of these different things. And when you start to bring them all together and try to use them on a day-to-day basis, now you're playing in the world of a growth designer. So what I want to do to put some actual color and real world to what I just explained is I want to talk about what growth design at Netflix is like. And we focus on three main things: hypothesis, experimentation, and results. So everything at Netflix starts with a hypothesis. I mean, literally every single thing, because it's kind of our driving statement. It's like our mission statement for whatever we're working on. If you don't have a hypothesis, then how do you even really know what problem you're solving or what success would possibly be like? So everything starts with that, and we come up with those hypotheses as a team. Netflix is a very cross-collaborative and cross-functional organization. So I work with my PMs and engineers and data scientists, and we all come up with these hypotheses together. And then after that, we run these tests. Like I explained before, we're a very test-focused company, and we believe heavy in data. So we do tons of experimentation, and I mean tons of it. And then based off those experiments, we get our results. And from the results, we decide what's going to be the future for this product. Are we going to roll this out? Are we going to iterate on it more to try to come up with a better idea? Have we learned enough from this where we don't even want to roll this out? So those are the three main things. And now I want to go a little deeper into an actual project to give even more clarity. So a test that I was leading, which was updating our login screen on television, which in Netflix talk, that's our non-member homepage on TV. So this image you see right now, most people who use Netflix haven't logged out in so long, they don't even know what this screen looks like. But for all of our new members, and remember, I work on the growth team, so my team is the ones who helped Netflix get to 200 million users, and now we're focused on getting to 300 million users, and then from 300 million to 500 million. So that's what my team is. We're trying to figure out how to get people to subscribe, sign up for Netflix. So this screen is where most of our traffic comes from. This is our non-member homepage on TV. This page had been the same for almost 10 plus years. It's effective. So it was one of those don't fix what isn't broke thing. But then at the same time, we felt if we're trying to get more users and tell our story better, we just don't know if this static image is working anymore. We do love the VLV, which is the diagonal imagery in the back. That's dynamic. We can swap that information out for localized content, and that kind of shows you the breadth of the content we have, but that doesn't show you nowhere enough. Netflix has over 13,000 titles, depending on where you are. So if you see this screen, maybe only shows like 50. And as a team, we realized that the hypothesis was, we think updating this with a video that's compelling will be able to convert more users because it will allow us to answer a lot of the questions that potential Netflix subscribers had. Some people still come to Netflix and say, I don't really know what Netflix is for. How much is Netflix? What kind of shows do you have? These are all basic questions that anybody who's about to subscribe for a service can have. So it's our job to answer those if we're thinking that by answering those, people will sign up more. So we decided as a group, as a growth team, we're going to update this static image to some kind of a video that explains all of these things. So, like I said, we really focused on experimentation. We started with 5 ideas where each idea was mapped to a value proposition though. So something for everyone is a value prop. Unlock Netflix is a value prop. Anytime, anywhere is a value prop. Freedom, and this is Netflix. And then each value prop, we came up with a direction that the video could possibly take, where option C was going to be real actors in the world showing you can use Netflix on a train, on a bus, or wherever. D was focused on you being able to watch Netflix, watch whatever you want on Netflix, and the breadth of content. E was focused on our existing illustrations that we already had. A was going to use actors as well, that focused on content and the diversity of our content. And then option B was more animated and focusing on trying to catch your attention through moving images and flashing our value props and things of that nature. So this one didn't have any actors in it. So we started with 5 options, and we did some qualitative research with our users, and we got down from 5 to actually 3. So I want to take a quick break and talk about UX research. UX research is so important. It's the way for us to not have to always assume what's the best for our users, our members. We can actually ask them. And I think that's what's so amazing about Netflix is the resources we have. So instead of us being able to not interview anybody, we interview tons of people. This year alone, we've interviewed members in over 15 different countries. And for the year, we've done over 170 individual user research tests. But three of my favorite research techniques that we use are user interviews, where we just get a group of people together, maybe 5 or 6 people, and we show them designs, we show them copy, and we get their feedback. We do quantitative surveys where we just email our users and get them to respond to survey questions, or we do moderated usability testing where we put an actual prototype together and then we let the user play with the prototype and we take notes based off of that. So I wanted to interject this because we did user research on the 5 previous samples that I showed, and that's how we got down to 3 options. Now, I know this screen is probably going to look a little technical, but I'll explain what's happening here. So we found the 3 options that we wanted to use, but some of the options had variations where concept B, we needed to decide, did we want to have a male voiceover or a female voiceover? The same thing for concept E, we wanted to decide if we needed a male or female voiceover. And then for concept Z, we wanted to decide, do we even want to do concept Z? So concept Z came in at the last minute because even though we did the user research and we got down to 2, everybody internally still felt, well, because we're Netflix, are you sure you don't want to try to use the content that we have? We have access to all of these shows that are so popular. We still think those may resonate with people. And what we realized was after we did this test that even though you would think using Netflix content is a good idea, it's actually not super inclusive because what's popular here may not be popular in Sri Lanka, may not be popular in Europe. So when you think about putting out a video that needs to be for our global future 300 million users, you want to create some content that feels inclusive for everybody. And that's what started to make concept Z, which was using footage from existing movies, seem less and less of an option, because how are we going to be able to put together a video that made everybody on planet Earth feel like this video was made for them? So that kind of helped us realize that maybe concept Z might not end up being the best option for us. And maybe it was concept B or E, which were the ones that were more animated, where we would have more control over them and we would be able to make more edits, as opposed to something like a actor where once we shoot that, we're stuck with that. These other options started to realize that they weren't as scalable when we really got into the weeds of trying to build them. So the results of this test ended up being option B as the winner. And I want to give a little bit of a backstory on option B. So it ended up being the directional winner with a 2.5% sign up increase, a 2.6% realized revenue lift, which ended up resulting in almost a $30 million incremental yearly revenue. So this was a massive win for the team, for me, for Netflix, and I was excited to be on board. But I want to give a little bit of an explanation about what you're actually seeing happen right now. So like I said earlier, new visitors to Netflix, they want to know what can they get from Netflix, and the breadth of content is really important to them. So instead of only having a couple images on screen, we figured, how can we show as many thumbnails as possible, as well as we can split them up into different sections so people can see we have kids, we have international, we have comedy, because these are all of the questions that they have, remember. So by breaking it into these sections, we're answering one of the questions. By showing all of these thumbnails, we're giving one of the major value props, which is how much content we have. But here's where the inclusivity and here's where the amazingness of my engineering team comes into play is this video is so dynamic. Every single thumbnail you see is being pulled in from a database, as well as it can be updated depending on wherever that user is opening Netflix from. So if you open this in Sri Lanka, you wouldn't see the same thumbnails that I see that I open in California, because we're showing based off of what's popular in that area, which I think that's just amazing. The scalability of this is unreal. And then second, we can actually translate all of the thumbnails. So we'll translate and show you the thumbnails in the language that whatever you have your default language set to in Netflix, which is also a really inclusive thing to do from our side. And then lastly, we translate all the copy. So all of this text shows up in over 33 different languages, depending on what you have your account set to. And these are all of the different ways that we try to provide the best experience, the best global product experience for all of our users by caring this much about every single step to make sure that we're solving the problems of the users and giving them the information that they need. So one interesting thing I want to talk about with this product as well is we were at the last stages of rolling this out. And I said earlier that for these videos, we were trying to figure out, are we going to put a voiceover? Now, this gets very, very complicated because when you think of a brand like Netflix, we have to decide, do we want our voiceover to be male or female? And that's major because that would have two different receptions depending on where you are on the planet, as well as how are you going to find a male or a female to possibly speak or translate into 33 different languages. So now the cost is going up, the logistics is going up, the product management is going up of this, but we're all thinking, well, this voiceover is really important. So I guess this is what we have to do. And literally the day I was about to send the email to the translation team to go ahead and get this hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of translation started, one of our backend engineers in our meeting, he just raised his hand and said, do we even need the voiceover? And everybody in the meeting just stopped and looked at him like, what are you talking about? What do you mean, do we even need the voiceover? But then one by one, you saw the bulb go off. And we started to ask ourselves, well, if we're putting the text on the screen, you can read the text. We're showing you all of the thumbnails. What happens if somebody has their TV off, muted, or the volume low? Then that means that they wouldn't even hear the voiceover. So now we're wondering, do we need the voiceover, or would it be smarter for us to actually come up with something that's a little more universal? And we did. So we came up with a internal track from our music department that completely replaced us needing to do a voiceover. And now we have this amazing custom track with the video that's scalable. We didn't have to worry about the voiceovers, and we saved a ton of time. We saved a bunch of money. And I just want to give that as an example of design thinking and how these ideas are always iterating. They're never finished. You're always trying to get better no matter what. And even at the last minute, you could possibly change the plan. So some resources that I wanted to just give out, if you're interested in learning more about growth design, there's an amazing website, growth.design. You can sign up for their newsletters. They do evaluations of different growth tactics every month. You can join the growthdesigners.co Slack. I'm a member of them. It's an amazing organization as well. And here goes some links about A/B testing if you're interested in that. And then one more link one more article on Medium about defining growth design, the guide to the role most startups are missing. That's a really good article to help you understand about where growth design is going and just how important we are to these different organizations. So thank you. That's my presentation. I'm hoping I have time for some questions now, and I guess I will use this Teams to see if anybody has any questions. Let's see. Conversation. I'm gonna hang myself up. Where are the questions? Cool. So I don't see any questions coming yet in the chat or Q&A. No, I don't see any yet. If anybody watching has any questions, please feel free to ask if you have anything about growth design or product design or working at Netflix or anything of that. Let me know. Like, I can also try to think of some other stuff too.
Hi, Fonz. Please bear with us for a little bit.
Oh, sure.
Hi, Fonz. Yeah, on behalf of everybody, I want to thank you for that insightful session. We surely enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I had a good time. Did anyone?
My pleasure.
Did anybody have any questions?
And to the audience, I want to remind you of a couple of things.
Nope, no questions.
Yeah, it seems like we don't have any questions, Fonz. Yeah, we can.
I can give one last little bit of information about what my team is structured like. So we have our product designers, we have our data scientists, we have content designers, design managers, front end, back end engineers, design ops, program managers, legal, globalization, localization. I'm sure I'm forgetting other people, but my team is pretty big, so I'm fortunate enough to be able to work with a lot of smart people that help me get these things done.
We have one question. Okay, let me direct it to you. It was a very interesting example with the main banner. They say, if it ain't broke, don't.
Question just came in. Do you consider competitors' movements when coming up with product designs? That's a good question. And the answer is no. So it's not a no as if we don't care what Amazon is doing or we don't care what Disney Plus is doing. But remember, we were the first major player in the streaming space. So a lot of our competitors are trying to keep up with us. Now, we do keep our eyes open to what they're doing, but when we're coming up with our solutions, we're always trying to be as creative and innovative as possible. So we don't necessarily compare to what they're doing. We have seen competitors do a lot of the things that we do, but because we already have a major slice of the pie, I think copying our competitors would be kind of taking a step back. But we are very aware of what everybody's doing, but there's an internal philosophy from the CEO down to not spend our time worrying about our competitors. Let's see. What are the most frequent challenges faced by growth designers? Timing of getting things out the door. It's such a fast moving environment that you can potentially start a project on, let's say, November 1st, and you think you're going to have 4 months and it's due in February. And then before you even could get finished in the month of November, your product manager's like, hey, we're going to cut scope and we need to move this up 2 months. And now you're like, wait a minute, we need to move this up 2 months, but we haven't really changed the results we want. We've just shortened the time because everybody wants to get things done faster and get results faster. So I would say time is an issue. And then some of the problems or some of the conversion that we're trying to do is really difficult. Think about it. Netflix, so many people already have Netflix. Like I said, 209 million people on the planet Earth have a Netflix account. It's like, where are you going to find those other 300 million people at? Where are they going to be at if you don't already have them? So I think growth problems are just really big and they're usually kind of vague. And because of that, it may take time for you to even really figure out what's the best problem to solve. Let's see. What is the best stage of applying growth designing for a newly built product? From the beginning. Great question. These are some good questions, honestly. From the beginning, you should be thinking about how you're going to grow this as soon as you come up with the idea, because if you have to try to squeeze it in later, now it's just not the same as if you would have given the product its just due early and thought of, okay, well, what does scaling this look like? What does successful growth for this look like? What do I need to do for this to grow? Because if you've already built the product and now you're trying to figure out how to grow it, that's cool, but you may have to build new things that you could have probably avoided building if you thought about it when you started. As well as growing your product is so important. It's almost like what else are you thinking about besides actually executing on a product when you've built the product? You know what I mean? I'm saying that you should actually be doing both at the same time. It shouldn't be, okay, I did growth and then we built the product, or we built the product and then we did growth afterwards. They should be running side by side so that they're aligned and you don't end up having to make any massive changes to grow the product, which is what I think a lot of startups do. They build one idea. They didn't really think about it enough from the beginning. If that idea doesn't work, now they think by building all this new stuff, it's going to make this product a lot better. And it's probably not. It's already probably made it even more confusing than it was before, where if you would have started from the beginning thinking, okay, what market or what problem do we need to solve to be able to get this picked up and have this scale, you're going to have a better result, because that's kind of like being in front of it as opposed to being behind it. So I would say you should be doing growth design no matter where the product is. And even if you're already in V2, apply it now. Don't necessarily feel like you can only do growth design if you're starting something from the beginning. Let's see, one more comment from the moderator. It was a very interesting example with the main banner. They say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But with growth design, how to identify and prioritize what to fix when it ain't broken. Well, at Netflix, we actually have bigger strategy bets that we decide as a company on what do we need to do to take us to the next level. And those things will trickle down into what we decide to actually either fix or innovate on. So if it doesn't need to be fixed, then we won't fix it. We'll just leave it and we'll spend that time figuring something else out. But we do believe in optimization. We do believe in things changing, users changing, user behaviors changing. So we're constantly auditing the product, or a growth designer should always be auditing the product to see where maybe users are falling off at, or the retention is not as strong, or you're losing engagement, and then decide, is that worth fixing? So I think that target is always moving, where at Netflix, I've only really optimized 2 projects. Everything else was brand new things from the start. So I think it also depends on where the company is on. If you just launched, that's a lot different than a company that's existing who already has made their mark, and now it makes more sense for them to fine tune stuff, where a new startup is just trying to get users. So you're probably trying to put out as many features as possible. So you don't really have a lot of time to iterate on things and make things better. You're just trying to get things out the door to scale up. So when I was in my startup days, it's a lot different than my days now at Netflix, where it's a lot more strategic and tied to bigger business and company revenue goals than when I was first designing, which was, I just want this to maybe look better, or I want to get better feedback. I want to get more compliments from something. We don't really move like that now, or I don't really worry about things like that right now at Netflix. It's more focused on, are these things we're changing going to result in some kind of tangible result, which is usually revenue or conversion numbers or subscriber increases. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but these were really good questions. So I wanted to give you clear answers. I think that's about it. Those 4. That was great. I love answering questions. I love hearing what's going on in people's mind. And I love that some of the things I say gets people gears spinning and to have them want to ask questions. So that shows engagement. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Fonz, and thank you for answering all the questions. And as we can see from the questions,
see if there's any more questions come up. Yeah, I guess somebody has any more questions. Cool.
No more questions.
Yeah, it seems like we don't have any questions.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I hope you learned something. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I love to meet new people and support people in tech or diversity or design or whatever. Drop me a line, say hello, and I promise I will respond when I can, when I can.
On behalf of everyone, I want to thank you again, Fonz, for that insightful session. And it was very interesting. Thank you very much.